Hey guys, I just wanted to actually make a video and talk about the subject of grief. And before I do that, I wanted to kind of share with you that when I thought to make this video and to make this content, I was like, okay, what's the subject I want to talk about? And the subject that came to my mind intuitively was grief. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit morbid. People want to hear something around positivity, light, and expansiveness. And I realised right there in that moment, we have very conditioned and programmed beliefs about grief, so much so that I was hesitant to make a video about it, right? And the beliefs circle around this concept of when we suffer loss and sorrow and we experience these emotions, well, it's very much kind of projected onto us that we have to get on with this, right? We need to get over it, we need to get on with it. And right there is a condition and programming that's passed down to us, especially in the Western cultures, that grief is somehow relegated to the shadows, to the underworld, and we don't openly express and talk about the loss and the pain that one experiences in this lifetime. So with that said, there's kind of three aspects that I want to talk about around grief, and the first one is what grief is, secondly why we experience it, and thirdly how we kind of traverse these emotions of grief and how we kind of consciously move through the grief in order for us to experience more love and more joy and more happiness. So going back to my first point around what is grief, right? What do we mean by grief? And for me, it's very much this feeling of pain and trauma and loss. Yeah, we experience loss in our life. It's this feeling of losing something, someone that we loved. It's also the emotion of grief is also related to memories that we have, that we've created and that we've stored. Right? So memories are created in the mind. The experiences are created and stored in our body. And when we lose someone in our lives, those memories get replayed over and over again, hence why we feel this pain and this sorrow. And thirdly, the third element of grief is, for me, is this longing for wishing it was different, right? So I just recently lost both my parents. Actually, they kind of passed away, left this realm it was 3 months between their death, and for me it's been very much this case of, oh man, I wish they were here, I really miss them. So this longing and wishing for things to be different, and also, like I said, the grief comes around the memories that are created, right? All the happy memories, all the romanticism, all the nostalgia that are very much stored in the mind, and those happy experiences that are stored in the body, and there's a longing for those memories, especially when we lose someone, and obviously this creates a level of pain in the emotional body, in the energetic body, and we get to kind of fully live that, fully release that, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail in a minute. So the second part of this that I want to address is why do we actually experience grief? Okay, and for me it comes down to this level of attachment and dependency and expectation we create, right? And that's okay, right? That's okay. We've come here to live a very human experience, and we've come here to experience these emotions, right? These emotions of sorrow and pain, and grief is very much related to this level of, like I said, attachment. So again, give you an example of my own story. I was very much attached to my mother's and father's love, right? There was a level of attachment, and attachment actually creates dependency. So I became dependent on that love, and again, right, there's no judgment on that. That's perfectly natural. It's perfectly okay, and that's very much part of our human journey, is to kind of realize where we have and are creating attachment and dependency and expectation, and as we awaken in our journey of consciousness and awareness, we kind of shine the light on the relationships that where we've done this, where we've created this attachment and dependency. So going back to my mum and dad, yeah, you know, there's a dependency, there was a need for their love, and now they're no longer here. Well, a natural grief arises in me, right? That love has been, I don't want to use taken away, but the love is no longer present in the physical form, in the human form, and there comes the grief, there comes the sorrow, there comes the loss, there comes the loneliness, right? That they're no longer here to offer me that support and love. Hence why I'm experiencing this grief, right? Now, had I not created that level of attachment and that level of dependency, the question becomes, well, would I still be experiencing grief, right? And for me, the answer is yes, because we love, right? We love from our hearts, and when we love someone, even without that level of attachment and dependency, there will be a natural feeling of sorrow when someone leaves us, and when we experience this level of grief, it kind of embeds us in our human experience, right? I'm hoping that kind of makes sense. So that's the point about why we experience grief, and the third point, and probably the crux of this is like, well, how do we fully live it? How do we fully release it? How do we kind of overcome these lower, denser emotions that one is experiencing? And for me, this is really simple, right? There's no complicated algorithm. You know, we don't need to get any NASA scientists involved in this. And for me, the process is this: that we fully accept it, right? We fully accept that these emotions of sorrow and pain are present. They're here in our lives, and they're here to be released. And again, in my own story, my mum, she passed away about 3 or 4 months ago, and my dad was 3 months prior to that, like I said. And I was very much recalling the story and telling my friends, you know, that okay, yeah, my parents have left this realm, and you know, they're no longer here, and I'm feeling this level of grief. And actually, what I was doing in recalling that story, I was yes, saying the story, and I wasn't actually living those emotions, right? I was like, okay, this has happened to me, and yeah, I'm dealing with it. And I wasn't truly living the emotions. I wasn't truly experiencing the emotions of the grief, of the pain, right, of the suffering, of shedding the tears. And it became very apparent to me that this is the way I get to consciously traverse these feelings, and rather than avoid and repress and suppress these feelings, I get to go through it. And going through it means actually fully accepting, you know what, today I don't feel great, I feel really lonely, I'm longing to speak to my dad, I'm longing to speak to my mum, I just want to receive a hug from them, and just seeing where the energy, where the emotion arises in me, in my physical body, and allowing myself to locate that pain or that whatever that energy is, right? The loneliness, the longing, and fully accepting that this is present right now, and going deeper into that, going deeper into the feeling. And as I've done this, and I continue to do this because this is so recent, right? These events are so recent in my life. I'm noticing a difference. I'm noticing that when I locate the pain, you know, I did this yesterday actually, where I suddenly had a memory of my dad, and this was during meditation. I suddenly had a memory of my dad, and I felt this contraction in my heart, and I was like, okay, this is present, why is this here? And I realised it was because I missed him, right? Simply I missed him, and he wasn't here, and he offered me this level of love and safety and support, and tenderness, and that wasn't present, so my heart contracted. I became aware of this, and I fully went into the feeling, right? I went fully into the feelings of, oh God, this hurts, this is painful. And then came the tears, right? Then came the tears, and I was sobbing for a good 10 minutes, just sobbing, crying my heart out, if you will. And that is the way we traverse this, right? That is consciously living through our grief, is me doing that, fully living in it, right? And going through it. There was no avoidance. There was no, okay, I need to stop the tears. Okay, my heart has contracted and it hurts, and I'm not going to deal with this. You know, this can be saved for another day. No, my choice was to fully go into it, and that's the nature of fully going through it, fully living in it, fully experiencing it, letting your body kind of react and respond. And when we do this, we are freeing up the energy, right? Because those stored memories, those stored emotions in my body, as I went into the tears, as I went into the pain, the energy was allowed to flow, right? The flow of energy started moving, and it started to dissipate, because, you know, energy, it wants to move, it wants to flow, and it's our own repression and suppression that keeps these painful memories stored in our body, stored in our energetic field. And when we choose to go deeper into the feelings of loss and sorrow, of pain and grief, the energy starts to move, right? It starts to shift. And I noticed after my crying session, let's call it that, I noticed the difference. I noticed this lightness, right? I noticed how I felt better. And that was me doing the work. It was me going fully into the grief. It was me allowing the energy to come up and release. And for me, I know there's more to do, right? And that's the journey. That's the journey of waking up, of fully living the human experience, of fully processing the grief. And grief work is sacred work. There actually is an intimacy to grief work. Grief work is actually our gateway and the path to start experiencing more love, more vividness, more aliveness, more radiance in our life. And I honour you and everyone who's on the journey of waking up, journey of consciousness, and also people who are experiencing grief and loss and sadness in their lives. My invitation to you guys is to fully feel it and just notice the difference within yourselves. Okay, look, with that said, if you've liked this video, if you found it useful in any way, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear about your journeys into grief and how you've experienced grief in your lives, and I'd love you to subscribe to my channel, because my intention is to provide content that will elevate human consciousness, wake people up, so we start living a more conscious, more joyful, more abundant life.